Welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This is the place where we help entrepreneurs expand their business, build their wealth, and generate passive income. I'm your host, Brian Beers, an entrepreneur who's on a mission to inspire growth from everyone around me. Remember that you need to take the actions others won't, and you can live the life that others don't. Please be sure to check out my weekly newsletter that now drops every Thursday. It includes one quote, one tweet, one podcast recommendation, plus some business and investing insight from me. It's short and it's sweet. My goal is to provide you with just a couple gold nuggets to help inspire your growth. Go to brianbeers.com to subscribe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Business with Beers. I'm excited today to bring you Barrett O'Neil. Barrett is the CEO and founder of Brightline Media. He's the co-founder of OnDemand Storage and has an audience of over 100,000 people across Twitter and other social platforms. Welcome to the show, Barrett.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So to start, can you give us an idea of kind of your journey from 18 years old, graduate high school, and then what does the next 12 years look like?
Yeah, so I went to, had a pretty interesting 12 years. So I went to the University of Virginia on a baseball scholarship, very competitive place to play baseball. Things were going really well until I heard a big crack in my elbow, and then I ended up having surgery like many people do. My surgery didn't go great. So it's kind of at this point where I couldn't play baseball at that level anymore. And I said, okay, what do I want to really do? I want to focus on business. I want to do something else that's competitive. So I ended up transferring to a school called Babson College, which is a business school right outside of Boston, where I'm from. So I knew some people there. So I get to Babson and start learning about entrepreneurship. And I'm like, hey, this is up my alley. I can feel myself getting really passionate about it. And then I had this chance train ride with a guy who actually sold his business for almost $500 million. And what ended up happening was he kind of gave me the entrepreneurial spark, and we decided we were going to do summer storage for all the international students at Babson. We stored about 67 students in my parents' basement. It was like, okay. I think we had a 98% margin. I always say it was the best business that ever existed. and so I'm pretty sure I lied to my mom and told her it was going to be like 10 kids. And she's like, yeah, okay.
And it's packed to the ceiling.
Oh, it was insane. Oh, it was insane. It was awesome. So we made I think we did 22K in revenue. And so me and my partner, we basically made 2 or 3x what we were going to make in our internships all summer. So that was incredible. And that kind of spawned this idea for on-demand storage, where there was a kind of an ecosystem popping up where Clutter and MakeSpace are two of the big companies. They'd raised a lot of money for this kind of on-demand, we'll pick it up for you storage. So that's where we started with that. We've kind of found that commercial storage is where we really excel and what we're passionate about. It tends to be larger deal size, longer duration, just better economics in our opinion. So we're a little bit different than them on that. And through that business, I picked up some SEO and backlinking skills. And so I just started working with clients one-on-one on that a couple of years ago. And so that's pretty much how I've got to this point. And then I just started talking about all the stuff on social media.
Yep.
That's how I grew that.
Yep. So let's dive into the storage model a little bit, if you don't mind, just kind of at a high level and go from there. So what's the elevator pitch on it?
So Class B industrial real estate, where companies would use those types of buildings for storage, there's a major supply crunch on that. Definitely where we're from in the Boston area. And the reason for that is it's not sexy. And towns and cities want sexy real estate, like big, nice multifamilies that bring people to the town. So that by nature kind of creates a little bit of a supply crunch on space. So if you control the space, lots of companies need smaller subsets of space, but there isn't warehouses to accommodate that. So then you can lease to them at much higher price per square foot. Our average price per square foot is $27 to $31 we charge. A lease in this area might be $10 or $11 or $12.
So big facility, you're breaking it down into smaller 1,200 square feet or whatever it is, and then renting out those individual at a much higher rate than if you were to rent the whole 100,000 square foot or whatever to one big customer. Is that
right? And the reason that works is because say a 3,000 square foot warehouse, finding a 3,000 square foot warehouse in the metro Boston area is borderline impossible.
In Philly, I've had that need for another business we had, and it's literally impossible to find it.
And if you do, the price per square foot is so astronomical because the people that operate that real estate know how valuable it is. So you don't end up saving. And then you have to taxes, insurance, all the stuff that come along with signing a lease. So we provide a solution to that problem, and tons of people had that problem in the past. What we've noticed, because we used to service residential customers as well for storage, but we're not really doing that any longer, because what we realized is there's such a need in the commercial space that it doesn't make sense to service those types of customers. I'm just a fan of B2B over B2C if possible. And so we just realized a rising need, like COVID really accelerated the need for this. Yeah. And so we're just really focusing on commercial opportunities now.
Yeah. And it seems like everybody's on the self-storage residential train. I mean, you hear about it. I mean, I just got off a podcast with another guy and same exact thing. It's all residential. And so, yeah, it's a unique proposition to say it's B2B. And so like, who's your typical customer? What are they storing? Like, what does all that look like?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with the biotech and pharma industry in Boston. So what they'll store with us is consumables. So that could be like anything that they use in a lab that needs to be replaced. So like maybe it's single use or can be used a couple times. And then so we'll also work with a couple of hotels in the Boston area. A lot of them will renovate. And so typically when a hotel renovates, they'll go like floor by floor. So that's a really long-term job. And so those are different types of customers, but we also we do like I call it soft logistics, which is basically, we don't have any desire to be XPO or Old Dominion Freight Line, but there's a big need for companies that need like 1 or 2 deliveries per week. And so what we can do is we bring in outside contractors with trucks, and they can make those deliveries. So we become a really nice storage option for these people that need a place to ship their things in bulk. They buy in bulk to get pricing, but they don't need their entire order delivered. So then they'll get that shipped out. So like manufacturers are really good customers for us. That's also recurring. And those accounts can grow too, which is really nice about those. So that's that was one that we didn't foresee coming, but ended up, manufacturing companies have been really good for us.
And it's individual units. Like it's not one big warehouse where you're like putting the stuff in the places. You've unitized it or whatever, right?
No, we operate it as warehouse storage. And so that's where customers don't come into our warehouse. It's all delivery. So we don't own trucks though. We have a delivery network that we build up with moving companies. And basically what we do is we give them enough business where like we get preference with them.
So the biomedical says, hey, I got a bunch of stuff I store. They put it outside their office or their warehouse, whatever they have. Your guy picks it up and then you store it on the pallet in some, whatever serialized way. Right.
Exactly.
To know that that's their stuff. And then when they need it, I guess you get a call and then you take it off the shelf and deliver it back to them. Is that the?
Yeah, exactly. And so we just, sometimes there'll be a normal cadence for certain clients, but for some, it might just be like dead storage for a really long time, years for some, which like those are obviously
good for you guys.
Clients, but but no, the delivery work is good because we can make some money on that, but we're trying to make money on storage. And return revenue. We do make a little, but I mean, it's never worth losing a great storage client over the delivery fees because it's really no work for us.
Yep. So that's the model. Like, and then how do you plan on scaling it? Like, what does it look like in 3 years, 5 years? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah. So our goal is to get into our own real estate, which we're closing on our first building on October 11th. And what we want to do is buy larger pieces of real estate and take like 8,000 to 10,000, maybe 15,000 square feet of those. So that allows us to get into a deal but allows us to diversify our space over multiple deals so we can build a real estate portfolio on top of that. And then we're also looking at some other cities that would fit this model. And so one thing we're exploring is like e-commerce logistics for like low SKU, high ticket e-commerce items. And what that would allow us to do is like move to states like Connecticut where the price per square foot on real estate is cheaper. Because with like FedEx and UPS type logistics, like the location matters a little bit less. We're like that Connecticut wouldn't work for our storage customers in Boston right now. So that's kind of our expansion plan out of New England. But our plan is to build a real estate portfolio in and around the Boston area as well.
Okay. And then how much of the business is it software driven? Have you guys like developed it yourself, or is it kind of like what does that all look like?
Yeah. So for our student storage, which is like a smaller sliver of our business, we'll have contracts and provide student storage over the summer. We have a custom software platform that we've built because it's like there's a lot of logistics that go into managing like high volume in a very short period of time. And over the years of doing it the hard way, we learned like, what people will try to get away with, what tricks they'll pull, all the things that like every business owner goes through early on, where like, you lose a couple $1,000 on something and then you kind of build a process so it doesn't happen again. So we've built software for that. And then for our residential business, like we don't need custom software. So I'm not really a fan of custom software unless you really need it, just because I think it ends up kind of creating like this whole other
cost to maintain
it.
it.
I spent 40 grand on when I didn't have that, on a custom software platform that like never really came to fruition, which I feel like is a story a lot of small business owners can tell.
Yeah, it's like all the money they spend on the website and the like business card and all this shit they don't need before they're actually making money. I mean, it was probably along that same vein, I would guess.
Exactly.
So cool. So talk to me some about like some of your theories along building businesses. Like, what's your kind of philosophy? You built a couple, you've got a couple different things kind of going on. Like, kind of how do you analyze what's a good deal? Like I don't know, your general philosophy around it.
Yeah, so I love things like most people that are recurring, whether that's monthly or annual. I love contract-based work, but more than that, like relationship work, and that's really why I like B2B. And so the big differentiator for B2B and B2C, in my opinion, is in a B2C transaction, like business to consumer, is that's that person spending their hard-earned money, which I think at a subconscious level, we all view money related to some sort of time or effort that we put in to earn it. So to get somebody to part with their dollars that they have earned, and the opportunity cost of them spending with you might be like buying their kids something, or, so it's just like, it can be a high bar, and people are like, can be very picky if it's not a necessity, like food or car maintenance, which I know you can help them with. And then in B2B, like it's usually budget based, right? So like if we're doing a deal with a pharma company, they may be a $200 or $300 million company, and the facilities budget might be, $10 million for the year. And so you're just a line item on that 10 million. So if you can provide value there, you route that hurdle of getting somebody to part with their own hard-earned money, and they're kind of just allocating a budget. And I've found that that's just a much better place to be. And it allows you to work on relationships, because the emotion of like the transacting of money is kind of taken out of the picture a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So then I guess, how do you see, I don't know, the recession potentially coming or here? Like, how do you see the impact there, at least on your business or any of the things you're involved in? Yeah. So with storage, I think it will do well through a recession, because it's a very need-based service, right? So it's like, some people say like, hey, maybe we'll shrink that down or get rid of it. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But I also think there'll be other opportunities of people saying, hey, we want to shrink down our manufacturing operation or shrink down our office space. That will then bring us new customers. So I think we'll do well through the recession there. As far as my SEO and backlinking company, I mean, I think that definitely, it could be threatened by a recession, but I also think it's like, if you know what you're doing in any industry, like businesses will transact during recessions. It's not like, I think sometimes the media makes it sound like everyone
COVID,
just
like
hides under their bed and like holding their wallet or something. It's like, things need to get done. So you can be someone who can add value. I think what you have to do, in my plan, is to add more value to the people that I work with, right? So maybe during great economic times, people are scrutinizing a little bit less, but in tougher economic times, like maybe rather than just getting somebody backlinks, you need to help them strategize other parts of their business online, or, and it's like, maybe you're not charging for everything. Not that you want to be doing all this free work, but I think you just need to find a way to be more valuable, because I think people will always pay for value, whether it's good or bad economic times.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. So I guess one of the I don't know, counters or whatever to the B2B, B2C model too, is then it seems that if more your business is relationship based, if one of them goes sour and it's a big chunk of your business, like you could lose it overnight, right? New CFO comes in and the budgets get tighter, versus in the B2C, you're spread out against 10,000 people. You lose one or two customers, not that big of a deal, right?
Yep.
How do you view that, or what's your strategy to say, hey, I want to like make this as strong as I can, so I'm the last person that's going to get cut?
Yeah. So first of all, I agree with you. I think that B2B, the threat is somebody new comes in, they want to bring in their own vendors because people want to make their own mark. Similar to like a coach going to a new team, right? It's like they want their own players.
Or they have their own relationships that they've established over the years, right? And the guy just got fired, like whatever the case is, right? You
could be on the good and bad side of that too, right? Because if someone steps up and goes to a new place. So I think there's two ways to deal with that scenario. And the first is you've got to try to meet more than one person at every company, right? Okay. So like that's something we stress really is really important. So when I'll give you an example. So we were dealing with a pretty large contract we have this morning, and the initial person that we had spoken with, we were having a kind of a hard time getting in contact with. So what we did is we reached out to someone who we had met at the very beginning. And it turns out that person we reached out to today had actually been promoted in the meantime and was now kind of the top dog. And so he got the other person on the phone quickly. And so now it's like, okay, we have two allies in the company. So if one leaves, there's a less likelihood you'll get booted, but there's also a likelihood that you could get business at their new company. So I think that's a really good way to diversify. And then the other way is you just always have to be creating pipeline. I think every business in the world faces this problem to a certain extent. The pipeline is the most important thing. You need new business on the horizon, because no matter, you could provide the best service to someone, at some point you're going to lose business to no fault of your own. It's like, you can either complain about that, or you can, I always think of supply and demand as a funnel, and like a horizontal funnel. And if you have your demand way outpacing your supply, then it's like you'll sleep good at night and your business will always be healthy. And so that's why what we do is, like, I would rather have a warehouse bursting at the seams and leave a little bit of upside on the table than overstretch ourselves thinking we're untouchable, and all of a sudden a pipeline dries up because of recession or something, and now we're looking there with a pretty ugly P&L. So
what's the sales process look like? Is it all SEO driven because that's your thing, or is it like guys on the phone, like outbound, trying to get some of these deals? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, it's pretty simple. So we get a ton of business inbound. And so our web traffic, we do not try to optimize for tons of web traffic. We try to optimize for the right traffic.
So the niche, really focused on the niche of a high quality lead, not just anybody.
Exactly. Right? It's all commercial storage and student storage. And the only reason we do student storage keywords is to try to get contracts, like schools will run into an issue. We've actually gotten 3 contracts that way, which school contracts are hard to get because you're dealing with colleges, universities, a lot of red tape. So we've gotten 3 college contracts inbound through that strategy. But then on the other side, we've gotten a lot of really good customers who just find us in Google and reach out. And then the other part of our strategy is just all LinkedIn. So we just target like facilities, office managers, and we reach out and we get in touch. And the interesting thing about our sales, it's like I said, it's very need based. So there's 3 categories of customers. There's FU, don't reach out to me again, which everybody deals with. And then there's yes, I need it now. Or yes, I need it, but not yet. And so yes, I need it now is great. Let's talk. Can we get a walkthrough? And then if not, it's like, we throw them into a cadence of, we send them a handwritten note, we send them a gift card, we send them, we call them monthly, like, just depending on what they ask for. And so that's how we keep in touch with those people. So it's a pretty simple pipeline, which is
how big is your sales team?
So we have one person who does all our outreach, and then we have in our inbound, which is really just process driven. So it's not really sales team. We have one full-time salesperson. Like I said, lean teams, I told you earlier. And then what happens is, like, we'll get dragged into bigger deals. Like sometimes it's like we had a customer come in through a web form. It ended up being like a $300,000 per year customer. So it's like, there's a lot of moving parts. So like, then we had to come in.
And that's when you get involved on probably the bigger deals than the smaller, 1,200 square feet or whatever they need.
Yeah. Anything over like 5 or 6K a month, like me or my partner will get involved just to make, cause like the opportunity cost of messing up a deal like that could be very high. So we just want to make sure that's done properly.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about building the social media audience. I guess, what is the value? Like, why spend the time to build an audience?
Yeah, it's a lot of people. That's everybody's first question because like it's obviously tough to do.
Yeah, because it's hard. It's not easy. Like if it was easy,
No.
everyone would do it, and then it wouldn't be valuable, right? So like,
right. So I think it's very similar to, in my opinion, to the SEO space and really like sales in general. And I think a lot of this stuff comes down to building authority, right? Like that's kind of the overarching word. And what is authority? It's basically like attention and trust combined is authority. Because attention with no trust, like there's all those, we see infomercials, they get attention, but we don't trust them. And then there's people that like we trust, we give our social security number to, but like they maybe don't have attention. So that's really what it comes down to for me, is kind of just building authority at scale. And what does that do? Like authority basically becomes an asset value, and you can trade assets for time, money, meetings, getting in rooms, investment opportunities. So it's all these things. So it's basically like the most scalable way to create authority with the most amount of people. And that's really my thought behind it. And I do think as these platforms mature, there's like a weird level of clout that comes along with having a following, which by the way is like a little weird because I don't think I'm any smarter. Maybe I know more people and I've learned from writing than I was when I had 2,000 followers or 0 compared to 80 or 100.
Yep.
But like the way it's all the perception, right? And a lot of that is perception. So like for my SEO business, if I'm like, hey, I've built an audience of 100K talking about this stuff. Like it gives you some level of, hey, like at least 100,000 people would have to be stupid for
to listen to
me to make a bad choice. Yeah.
All right. So it's an asset, right? Like, and I've heard other people talk about that. I think it was Cody Sanchez. It was a while ago, and it was like talking about the different like capital in different ways, and it's money capital and time and software and labor, and the new capital is audience, and those are the biggest audience are the ones that are going to kind of have the best leverage in the future. Do you follow that as like, I mean, it sounds like it is as it's a source of capital.
Yeah, I think it's asset value. And I think, it's, I think the cool part about it compared to some of these other sources is a lot of it comes from like your own effort, where labor is, really how the world was built, right? Through labor and capital being organized. Yep. But yeah, now through audience, it's this way. It's almost like kind of reversing it, where if one person decides to be vocal and other people agree or are educated by what that person has to say, it's like they're rewarded with attention and authority, which then is translated into business opportunities for sure. I mean, I think you've seen like Nick Huber and his partner Dan do that maybe better than anybody on the self-storage front, right? Like they've raised tons of money and bought tons of facilities and helped themselves and other people make money. So it's like pretty cool to see like that go full circle.
Yeah. So what's your path? Is it to monetize it through like the digital product? Is it to like the fundraising aspect? Is it just for fun? Like how do you see yourself monetizing it?
So it definitely started for fun. I honestly didn't think that I would be able to build a big audience. I don't know that anybody does. It's just one of those that kind of happens and just stack small wins. But for me, like I definitely get clients through it. And like we built a really good process around getting backlinks for our clients, and they work really well. And I use them for my own business. And so we'll continue adding clients through that. But yeah, I mean, I really do see an angle as we acquire some real estate assets here of like breaking those down. And I have the newsletter going, and I think there'll be opportunities to try and segment people who are interested in real estate opportunities. And this is an interesting way to think about it on the real estate front is, so we just raised money for a deal that we're doing. And I probably know 40 or 50 people that I feel comfortable picking up the phone, calling and saying, hey, can I send you a deck? Imagine if you could get that to 1,000.
Yep. Like,
what does that do for, right? And it doesn't mean 1,000 people are investing with you. It just means 1,000 people, you'll call them, they'll pick up their phone and listen to you, tell them about an opportunity. That's pretty powerful stuff. And so I do see an opportunity with that to scale, what we're trying to do here, but it's nice to go to have a proof of concept. Like that's really how you get the attention and clout.
Yeah. You start your proof of concept. You got to have a good business model, and then you got to have this audience that you've built through providing a lot of value. I think, that's kind of a lot of what you talk about, right? Is it doing by just being as valuable as you can in terms of business lessons, whatever tips and tricks, all the insights, how we look at deals, right? So then that's how you build the trust, right?
Yep.
well, and then eventually you can do something with it. But like, I think some mistake people probably make is they try to like probably monetize it too quickly versus actually, and like, then people feel like they're just getting pitched all the time versus like trying to add value first, but they're like, being given back later in time.
Yeah, I think if your audience gets big enough and you've provided enough value, people will just come to you. And I do think you have to self-promote. One thing I'm not great at is like promoting myself. It's something I'm very uncomfortable with and I'm trying to get more comfortable with, where some people are great at making offers and it really works for them. And that's something like I need to improve on.
Why do you think you're not comfortable with it?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't have a great reason for that other than I think like by, we're taught like to be humble. And I think sometimes that bleeds into saying like, oh, like, will I come off as like overly into myself or something, where in reality though, like when you're selling and you're building a business, it's like you need to make you just need to make as many offers as you can. But I agree, there's a fine line to walk of like, what is an offer? Because an offer in 1955 was like an ad in the New York Times. An offer now could be just like doing a thread on how you roll up franchises, knowing that people who are in that space follow you and may bring you a deal. So it's just like, what is a true ask versus what is just giving stuff away. So it's kind of balancing that, but I think everybody's learning that. It's relatively new. Like
the solopreneur, whatever, with Justin and all these guys follow. And I think for me, a lot of it, maybe you don't feel this, but it's like, it's kind of like, it's you, right? And so like when you get rejection, even though they're rejecting the offer, I think a lot of times when it's like a personal brand, you feel that they're now rejecting you. And so
that's an interesting angle. Yeah.
So then it's like, it's a fear of rejection that, hey, I'm going to put this thing out there. And like, I think all these people are going to love it because they love me. And then like, but then you whatever, like you get some trolls, you get some like bullshit stuff. Maybe you don't hit the sales you wanted to. Like, at least this is what I play in my mind. And maybe it's the same, maybe not, but like, and then it's the fear of rejection, right? And it's the fear of like failure. And like I invested all this time, I put myself out there, and then like whatever, people like didn't do it. But then there's just like opposite side that like there's this polar, right? Everything has like polar effect in life, where that you put it out there and people can love it, and like they've been waiting for it, and like you're the perfect fit, and like it could be either one. It's a yin or yang, and I don't know. It's like sometimes we focus on the fear, but not realizing that the potential is like, we're impacting all these people's lives who like, we are the perfect fit for 1% or whatever it is, but we're really helping them too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the actual way that it works, and like when I logically break it down, because I agree, there's an emotional piece and then there's a logical piece to this. And I agree with your assessment of the I think everyone is like, okay, I think we build up these moments in our mind, like, okay, when I get to 100,000 followers, I'm going to put out an offer and I'm going to make $10 million. And it's like, the world is not that clean. Like, it's very, whether you're building a business or you're building a relationship or whatever it is, it's like, it's really a process of compounding and iterating that works. So it's like, I do think you don't want to be making offers like all the time, but I do think people with 2,000 followers or 100,000, like there's people with 2,000 that make more money because they're just like, hey, like I'm the best PPC guy in the world. And like, I'll give you $1 million if you lose money with me. And people are like, all right, like I'll try that out. And it's like, he may get clients because he's actually just making the offer. And so by the time he gets to 100, it's like, oh my goodness, like what will he be? So I do think there's a little bit of, if you view it in a way where it's like, it's not a culmination, it's just like part of the process. And sometimes you'll throw that tweet out and the algorithm will pick it up and you'll get 10 people who DM you and want to start next day. And other times you'll throw it out there and you won't even get a like. And it's like, that's just kind of the way it is, I think, on social media. It's kind of weird, but that's what's helped me combat it, is when I look at it like that. It's not a day that I'll make an offer. It needs to be part of my process.
Yeah. And I think if there's a confidence building too, that like, I think once you make the $1, you can make 100. Once you make 100, you can make 1,000, right? And then like, there's just compound effect. But I think the hardest one is the first one. At least that's I'm not even there yet, right? But that's where I'm like, that's the first bridge to cross. And then I think, these guys, and it just becomes
my first dollar online was just like, my head exploded. I was like, what? Because you would read blogs and stuff about people saying like, oh, I'm making all this money like doing this. And I'm like, there's no way. And it's so funny how like we're so good as humans at convincing ourselves that like if we haven't seen something firsthand, that there's no way it possibly exists. And this is what I always say, like the further I get along in business and like the more success that I'm able to have, like the less successful I feel, because you get exposed to these new levels.
Yeah, I mean, you're moving the goalposts, and you're like,
oh,
shit.
Thank God I didn't know about this. Like 5 years. Thank God I didn't know people were doing this 5 years ago. Like I would have cried myself to sleep every night because I was so far behind. And so you can only imagine like where it keeps going, I think. And so
but that's how you grow too, right? It's like you're getting around, you surround yourself with better and better people, and you realize like they're playing at a whole new level, but like they were at your level at some point in their life, right? And then they did their necessary steps to get there. And like, so that means you can do it. Like, I mean, there's guys like in some of these groups I'm in that are worth like $100 million, $200 million. And like, they were at my level, the same thing. And hey, maybe I'm even further along than they were when they were 35.
Well, you're dealing with them too. My dad always told me a great saying for that, like he instilled this in me young on this same thought process, which is he would always say like, somebody's going to do it, you know, like somebody's going to roll up all these franchises. Somebody's going to buy all this real estate. Somebody's going to be a professional athlete, like whatever it is that you want to do. So it's just, you basically just have to be willing to go get it. And there's like some level of risk and just insane effort and patience. So that it's like that combo. It's like risk, effort, and patience. Like, can you concoct this little potion where you can have that? That's what will carry you through. But you can really do anything that you want to, if you have the talent, which like I think a lot more people do have the baseline talent than they would give themselves credit for. Yep.
Have you read the book How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis?
So funny you said that. I read about a third of it on a plane one time, and I have the book, and I saw somebody tweet it the other day, so I just grabbed that in my basement. It's on my desk.
So I've been on Audible, and first of all, he's British, and there's a British like reader, so it's of course it's funny because it's whatever. It's super long. It's like 10 hours of like audio. But anyway, at the very end, he talks about this, and he says the main thing that holds people back is the fear. And it's like, fear is what keeps them up at night. Fear is what makes you to like throttle back, whatever, the expansion plans, because of fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of embarrassment, whatever it is. And he has this really funny thing that I'm not going to do it justice, but he was basically like, you need to look fear in the eyes, like French kiss it, and then cut its throat with a razor blade. And he was like, you need to be like, that's how you view fear, that like you view it, you know, it's there, but like, you're ruthless in going around it. And he said the better people get at that, like the more success they have, the richer they get, because they just do the deals and they just keep going. And like, I don't know, it's a funny, interesting take, but like he's totally right too.
100%.
That's
think of every time in your life you have a regret, like I didn't do something. What stopped you from doing it? It was like fear of embarrassment, fear of status loss, fear of financial loss. And like I always look back at some of those things, I'm like, I wish I wish I just did it. It's like the kid at the high school dance who's like too cool to get up there and dance. It's like, just go freaking do it, because you're gonna regret it. And 9 times out of 10 when you get out there, like you meet a new girlfriend or something, like something positive comes of it. And so that's, every time when I think back that I didn't do something I wanted to do, it was fear-based. And it's just like, that sucks. So you got to limit, and it's inevitable to not have some of those, but you've got to do what you can to limit them.
Even this like diversification. And I've gone down this path years ago, and I'm working on getting out of it, but like, that, I want all these diversified assets. I want all these different businesses. I want all this like different thing. And I, it sounds cool, like Warren Buffett or whatever, but then like what really drives it is fear, like fear that my single business, if I go all in on it, is going to fail. Right. And I want to back up. And so I'm going to like dilute my efforts across all these different things, but then you get diluted results. And then that business is going to grow maybe at a lot slower or hit a certain cap. And then you're wasted, like your effort. It's like you take that laser beam, right, and you concentrate on one thing, you're going to go a whole lot faster, further than if you take it and just like put it all over the place.
Well, I think you step in front of compounding if you diversify too much. So like if you take out your calculator, right, and you go like, okay, I can compound at 15% a year if I'm all focused on one thing. And it's like, but I can compound at 8% a year, focus on 2. It's like, just do the math on that. And like, you'll see there, like at a period of time, you might be making more early on, but you'll hit a point where like the adding 15% a year to like $4 million is just like, oh, whoa, this starts to grow really, 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 really fast. And I do think that's a really good point. Now, I'm like a little stretched across things right now, but what I try to do is like set up a process. Like with my agency, it's like my agency is not going to build wealth for me, right? Because it's like there's not a ton of
cash flow. It's a cash flow business.
It's a cash flow. So it's like I do that. Like I'll save the money, I'll buy real estate, I'll do that. But it's like I think my storage business, like I think we could grow that to a $50 million business that is like serious asset value.
100%. Yep.
That somebody would want to own. And so you've got to know, like if you are going to do different things, I think you've got to know the purpose. Because it's like if I spend all my time on my agency, it's like at a certain point you can only do so much, because who's going to buy an agency? Because if you don't have my Twitter account, like you're not going to get clients the same way I do.
Yep.
So why would anyone want to buy that? Like I wouldn't even feel good about selling that to someone, because I'd be ripping them off. Where with our storage business, it's like it's completely like an asset that runs on its own. So it's just a different.
Yeah, I think that's like when you're going to decide, hey, I'm going to get into these different ventures. I think that's the key, is like, what is the reason, and making sure that the business is serving that reason, whether it's, hey, I'm going to do this thing to build cash. I'm going to take that cash. I'm going to invest it in real estate. I'm going to then build the real estate portfolio. Once that hits a certain level, I can drop the cash flow business and like go all in here. Right. Like, and you can, play this game of chess, like with these moves rather than just checkers where you're just trying to like hop over the next one, but then you don't even like know where you're going.
Well, that's the difference. I think young people in particular, I'm 30. If I could go back to 22, I think I would put way more of an emphasis early in my life on building a legitimate nest egg of cash, say like $250,000 or $500,000 as fast as I could. Because what I've realized now is if you're 25, 26 and you could do a real estate deal that's 10 million bucks if you're putting in 250,000, because all the investors are going to know, assuming you're smart and you presented it well, it's a good deal, that like, hey, this person's putting in a lot of money that they have. And so it's just like, you can build a lot of, like, when you put enough skin in the game on something, like people will take you super seriously. And skin in the game can come from capital or time invested in something. And so you can put a lot in that way. And so that's what I would go back and do, is like, so to your point, it's like, if you can kind of map out, you don't need to map out everything too perfectly because things change, but with a little bit of chess, it's like you can make quantum leaps in very short period of time. And that's where I think capital earlier in your life, because most young people don't have capital. So if you can get it, it's a massive advantage, but you got to hustle your ass off to make that kind of money early in your life.
Or like you said, you find ways, it's like the deal, then the money, right? And then they're like, who's running it? And so part of it is matching skill set. So if you can, maybe you don't have the money, but you know guys who can build the money and you have a track record, you can do the deal. Like you get that first one under your belt and it's somewhat of a success. Like then you can just stack on top of that, right? Because now you can point to the track record. And
well, it's also like knowing what you're good at is critically important, and what you like to do, because you need to find somebody with the opposite skills as you. Because like a business with two really good salespeople, and with shitty operations is going out of business, and a business with two expert ops people
no sales,
is not going to work. So like I do think that's really important. So I'm outgoing, I like talking to people, I like high level deals. My partner, whenever I partner something, has to be like highly detail oriented, and just like my partner in storage, the ops run like incredibly clean, but that gives me time to go out and meet somebody on Twitter that now we're buying a $4 million building with and get the capital for that. So it's just you gotta have teams like that can make all this stuff happen too.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with me today. You got an awesome story. I think lots of kind of really cool lessons learned and some interesting insights here. So where can people connect? Obviously on Twitter, they can find you, right? Barrett O'Neil.
Barrett J. O'Neil.
Get the
Twitter.
J so we don't get the scammer.
Yeah. I got a couple scammers. I'm not trying to sell you crypto.
Okay.
I promise. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn too. And so, people, you can check out my agency website, Brightline Social. My email's on there. So I encourage people to email me. I love meeting new people and learn new things. So
cool. And then you got the newsletter you just launched, correct?
Yeah. First issue coming out next week. You can sub to that on my Twitter. First issue coming out next week. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, building businesses, audience, all the stuff we talked about here. Pretty much just going to give away everything that I'm learning. Hopefully we'll save the reader some time and money. I know I've wasted a lot of both in my life.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks again for coming on. And I'll see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Yep. That's all we got for this episode with the Business with Beers podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is to rate the show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on your preferred social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find all my links at brianbeers.com. Please just share the podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And until next time, remember to take the actions others won't, to live the life that others don't.